Hey guys, welcome back to Bling My Boat. It's Brandon Adkins here, and today I'm going to walk you through some of the technical side of how I began my 3D scan in VX Elements using our Creaform scanner and what it took for me to get started in working on that model in SolidWorks. So in the last couple of videos, we've mentioned some efficiency techniques if you're going to get started with 3D scanning. Make sure that you don't set your resolution too high. You can see that I went with a pretty coarse resolution in this case of 3 millimeters. You can also use some of the automation tools to do things like remove isolated patches, other data that you don't want to actually pick up in your scan. Now, when we finish our scan, you can actually pick and choose the information that you want to continue using. So for example, if I want to remove some of those isolated patches later, you saw me do a quick select there of a connected body, and everything else that's in the mesh I can basically remove by inverting my selection. So a pretty quick little tool there to help you get started. Also in VX Elements 8, which was just released, you can do things like reduce the file size or enhance your mesh for better quality. Some of those export options are available there just to optimize your mesh and make it a little bit better. Once we're basically ready to go, we've got some tools here that will make it really easy for us to transfer to VX Model, where I can spend a bit more time maybe cleaning up the mesh if I want to. So a good example of this would be if I've got an area that has blemishes that I want to try to clean up. Another new tool in VX Elements 8.0, we've got the sandpaper function, which will allow us to essentially just scrub one area of the model, and once I'm finished with that selection, I can choose how I want to smooth that section out. So if you've got parts like that that maybe have some defects that you want to clean up, the scanning software and VX Model are going to allow you to do that pretty easily. The other tip that I'll offer here is if you want to fill in some holes, you can go back and do this after the fact, and it makes it pretty simple to do this just by selecting some of those areas in your mesh that do have holes in it, and the software can go and actually fill those in for you. There's different ways that you can control that, and if I were to scan some more data to get other areas of the kayak, some of this would be a little bit easier, but you can see that it really doesn't take much at all to get some of that stuff filled in. And once we're ready, it's again very simple to just take this data and export it to our CAD system, in this case SolidWorks, or whatever CAD software that's supported with VX Elements is installed on your machine. So a couple of button clicks and we're ready to go. Now, when we get over to SolidWorks, we can essentially just get started right away. So I might need to create some new reference information like a 3D sketch. If I know the top of my kayak is basically planar, I can create a few reference points there and then stick a plane through each one of those reference points. So a pretty handy little tool there to at least give me something to build off of. One thing that I should have done ahead of time was aligned my scan in VX Elements, but I was kind of moving quickly and forgot to do that. It would have made it a little bit easier and I wouldn't have to create so much reference data later on. So lesson learned there, but once we get to SolidWorks, it's, we've got all the tools that we really need there, just some extra steps. So what I did in this case, you can see that I've got a 3D sketch with a point where I actually want to mount the spare rod holder for fishing, but I don't have quite enough data here. So I'm going to take a step back and insert another point in my 3D sketch so I can actually finish the inputs in creating that reference plane. So easy enough, we'll just come back, add one more reference point. And the nice part about this is I can actually reference the mesh data. So in using these graphics bodies and mesh bodies, SolidWorks makes it pretty simple for you to actually reference the points that exist on that mesh. And when you're ready to take your 3D sketch like I just created there, maybe run it through a couple of points and put it perpendicular to another plane. Very simple input. And what I'm going to use this for is creating slice data that I can actually develop a surface off of. So I'll show you a little bit of kind of getting started with the modeling process here. This bounding box really comes in handy for slicing through my kayak. So I can actually pick just a region where I actually want to create sketch data. You can see there that I just push and pull those arrows around on screen, give a quick little preview. You can see that intersection there of the bounding box and the mesh model. And then I just have to choose what I want to do with it. So for example, changing the offset distance between my planes, maybe the number of planes, we'll go with 7 planes in this case, 0.2 inches apart, just as kind of a rough estimation. And then maybe we'll back up that bounding box just a little bit if I don't want to create quite as much sketch information. Maybe that'll be good enough. And then again, we're going to uncheck that exact option so I don't pick up all the facets in my mesh. I want a nice smooth spline that goes through all those locations. So with the slicing tool, pretty simple to get started. You can see I've got a few profiles there that ultimately I'm going to use for a lofted surface. And I happen to use a couple of surfacing tools in this case that will make it simple for me to keep things going and develop all the information that I need. You'll notice when I'm picking these lofted sections, I'm trying to stay as close as I can to one end of my sketch. That's kind of a quick tip here. If you're creating lofted features in SolidWorks, it's going to try to align those sketches. So pick from the same end of your sketch splines would be my recommendation, and that'll make it a little bit easier to keep everything oriented the way that you want it to. So we'll create our lofted surface here real quick. That looks pretty good. Now what I want to do is trim this out to kind of a different shape that I'm going to use for the rod holder. And that's just a circular profile. What we'll end up doing is projecting that profile down onto the surface that we've created. And if I want to double check to make sure that I'm kind of in the right spot on the kayak, we'll bring back that graphics body just to take a look at. I think that's close enough for right now. So we'll do a couple of quick things here just to create that circular profile. Maybe I want 2 concentric circles. And we can obviously dial these in with dimensions as we go, but we're just kind of eyeballing it for right now. We're going to take advantage of the trim surface option. So if you're not aware of this, this is a really handy surfacing tool where I can do things like project a sketch onto a surface body and actually trim away what I want to keep or what I want to remove. So in this case, a single selection to just make that circular profile. And I'll talk more about where we're headed with this first modification in a later video, but these are some of the tools I would use to get started. Once I've created that surface body, obviously I need to turn it into something solid. So we'll give it a little bit of thickness here with the thicken command. We'll thicken it up away from the kayak. And I think that looks like a good place to get started. So a custom fit little flange there, it matches the contour of our kayak, and we can take advantage of that to keep moving forward with the rest of our features, which you'll see later on. And then bringing back our body for the kayak, maybe if I want to see where this final feature is located, maybe change the color of one of those features just so it stands out and we can kind of see how this is developing. That's a pretty nice way to get started. I hope you guys enjoyed learning something new here with some of the technical tips. Make sure to leave us a comment down below if you've got some other questions or if you need more information on any of the tools that we used here. We've got a lot more exciting modifications coming up and I can't wait to share them with you. We'll see you on the next episode.